November is make or break time with several college football teams breaking under the pressure this past week. Nearly half of college football's top 25 teams defeated this weekend, which means plenty of changes in the Week 11 AP poll. The top two staying the same. Georgia not quite the unanimous number one with 62 first place votes. Ohio State stealing that last one. Michigan up a spot to number 3. TCU jumping 3 spots into the top 4 after moving to 9-0 on the season. Tennessee on the outside looking in at number 5. The Oregon Ducks continue to fly up the rankings to number 6. LSU Tigers leaping 8 spots to number 7 after knocking off Alabama, and the Crimson Tide tumbling 4 spots to number 10. Biggest movers beyond the top 10, Clemson down 7 spots to number 12 after an upset loss to Notre Dame. Illinois down 7 spots to 21. Kansas State free falling 10 spots to number 23 after a third loss to Texas, which means the Longhorns re-enter the poll, as do Notre Dame, Washington, and Florida State. Let's bring in Brad Crawford to make sense of this mess. Brad, for the first time all season, the argument for the top team in the country is as simple as ever. How do you feel about Georgia at number 1?
I find it very interesting that Georgia is not the unanimous number 1 this week. 62 first place votes out of a possible 63. Once again, Grace, we have a voter who has gone rogue, watched the Dogs and the Buckeyes play Saturday, and I guess he or she thought, man, I'm impressed with Ohio State's close win at Northwestern. I mean, clearly Georgia's the best team in the country after 10 weeks. They've shown it on tape, large part each and every Saturday. 2 really impressive wins now against Tennessee and that opener against Oregon. Those 2 teams are combined 16-2, both losses coming to the Dogs. So I have Georgia as the unanimous number 1. AP voters do not. I do think the playoff committee will have Georgia number 1 on Tuesday night as well.
That one Ohio State voter may be giving a little too much credit to the win there at Northwestern. I don't know, but once again, the road to the Natty running through Athens. Okay, Alabama down to number 10 in the AP poll. Also notable, 11 in the coaches poll. And we know that anyone who's been following this team closely can kind of see it's been a down year for the Crimson Tide. And finally, the win-loss record has alerted some people to that, and now the rankings reflecting it. So what does that overtime loss to LSU say about this Bama team?
I think it says the Crimson Tide are who we thought they were. You know, Alabama has played 4 games this season that have come down to the final play, but was still being pumped as a legitimate playoff contender in Week 10, despite going against everything the selection committee chair last week said in terms of importance, like game control. I mean, how is a 1-point win at Texas in Week 2 and a 4-point win over A&M a few weeks ago positive game control? Obviously, it's real easy to beat up on the Crimson Tide this week, having lost to LSU, but it does feel a little different that we're going through the rest of November now, Grace, and probably not going to reference Alabama the rest of the year. So 7-2 Alabama after 10 weeks. Right now, if you're Nick Saban, I think you qualify this season as a big disappointment.
You're right. It feels so weird. I think this is probably the earliest Alabama's been out of it in a season. TCU at number 4 in both the AP and coaches poll. The Hypnotoads now at 9-0 and clinching a berth to the Big 12 championship game after a 10-point win to Texas Tech, and they did it without their star wide receiver, Quentin Johnson. How do you feel about the respect TCU's finally getting?
Yeah, TCU shot at a open and shut case comes this weekend in front of the committee at Texas, where the unbeaten Horned Frogs, according to some early lines I've seen, are a touchdown underdog against a 3-loss Longhorns team. Once again, no respect, despite being the Big 12's lone remaining unbeaten. That's a level that I think Sonny Dykes can play on with his team inside that locker room. It's getting tight now in that Big 12 championship race and the Final Four picture. I don't expect the selection committee to push TCU too many spots ahead in this week's rankings because of, where that group had them last week, but I'm projecting them somewhere along the lines of 5 or 6 with Oregon, and I think TCU right now has proven to be a legitimate contender in that national championship picture.
At first it kind of felt like they were getting a lot of luck in some of these wins. A lot of their opponents had injured quarterbacks, but maybe they're just finding a way to win, and that's what championship caliber teams do. All right, the next set of playoff rankings comes out on Tuesday, so who do you think the committee will be choosing in their top 6?
Yeah, I think Georgia is the number 1 team in the second playoff poll. I mean, the Bulldogs have earned that right now. Undefeated, 2 quality wins, as we've mentioned. Ohio State at number 2 is who I think the committee will pick. Michigan number 3. Now, I may have the Wolverines in that 2 spot based on what I saw Saturday. You know, I watched the first half of that game against Rutgers. I did not feel the Wolverines were in jeopardy of losing that game despite being down at halftime. They had a punt block for a touchdown. Just seemed to kind of sleepwalk through the first 2 quarters. But in my opinion, I kind of compare this Michigan team to an anaconda. It devours everything in its sight, and it's not necessarily pretty. So Michigan's a team I think the committee will have 3. Look at number 4, Tennessee, and then TCU and Oregon rounding out that top 6. So there's 6 legitimate title contenders right now in the playoff race as we approach Week 11.
I would love to see what Jim Harbaugh could do with that anaconda reference, as if he doesn't have enough quirks. That would be the weirdest press conference ever. All right, thanks, Brad. I'm sure we'll have many more changes in the rankings to come all season long, so stay with us. We'll be breaking it all down every week on the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.